3 countries you should not move to. In this video, we are going to talk about some of the most overrated places YouTubers love to talk about on this platform. It's not just YouTubers, actually. People love to talk about these places. In fact, people are moving to these places for many different reasons. To keep it fair, we're going to point out the pros and the cons of these 3 countries, these 3 places. Let's get started with the first one. The first place is Dubai. Dubai is not exactly a country. In fact, Dubai is a city located in the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates dirham is the official currency of the country, and you probably have seen the skyscrapers, you have seen the luxurious lifestyle that Dubai has to offer. But the question is, what's really going on underneath the iceberg? Dubai became really popular because of its zero tax regime, meaning if you move to Dubai and you become a resident of Dubai, you can get away with not paying taxes. For many people, especially high net worth individuals, high net worth entrepreneurs, businessmen, crypto investors, crypto traders, you'd think that Dubai is a great place to those people, and it certainly is. But Dubai also has its downsides. And one of the big downsides of living in Dubai is, of course, that everything is really expensive. You know, if you want to rent an apartment, you're going to pay a heck of a lot more than you would in many other places. Don't be shocked to pay $40,000 to $50,000 a year for a fully furnished 1-bedroom apartment in the downtown area of Dubai. Now, $40,000 to $50,000 a year for just a 1-bedroom apartment is a lot of money to pay. Now, imagine if you were a family of 3 or 4 who wanted to live in Dubai, you can probably estimate to pay at least 2 to 3 times that money, you know, assuming you want to stay in a 3-bedroom apartment. So we're talking $100,000 to $150,000 just in rent every year. So that's a substantial amount of money to pay just in rent. So Dubai is not a cheap place. Something that's also important that a lot of people don't like to mention is that when you rent an apartment in Dubai, you actually pay the whole year up front. This is a very uncommon business practice that isn't really applied by that many countries worldwide, yet Dubai in the United Arab Emirates loves this concept because Dubai is all about capitalism. Dubai is all about wealth. And so if you want to rent an apartment in Dubai, expect to pay the whole year up front, because very rarely, if ever, are you going to get a deal where you can just pay monthly. That just doesn't exist, right? Unless you maybe do an Airbnb. But still, you know, it's going to be a lot more expensive. So if you want to stay in Dubai for the long term and you want to take advantage of the tax residency, which by the way requires you to remain in the country for at least 90 days a year in order for you to qualify for this special tax regime, then you must also pay 100% of the yearly rent up front. If you want to send your kids to an international school in Dubai, expect to pay at least $1,000 to $2,500 a month in tuition fees, in school fees, right? So if you have a couple of children, guess what? Your expenses are going to be much higher than for somebody who is single, right? Without kids. But also the public school system in Dubai, you know, isn't really that great, so you probably want to send your kids to an international school, which again requires you to spend even more money. If you want to eat out at a mid-range restaurant, expect to pay at least $100 for a meal for 2 people, or, you know, it could also be a lot more expensive. You could also end up paying $200 to $300 for a meal for 2. If you were to buy a fully furnished 1-bedroom apartment in the downtown area of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, expect to pay at the very least, okay, and we're talking about a 1,000 square foot apartment here, expect to pay at the very least $1 million to $1.5 million. That's the local currency, right? That's the United Arab Emirates dirham. So we're talking about what, like 300,000 to 400,000 for a fully furnished 1-bedroom apartment with, you know, like 1,000 square foot, right? So this is not exactly a bargain because you're paying $3,000 to $4,000 per square meter, right? Roughly. Of course, now you could argue, well, if you move a little bit outside the downtown area, you probably can find something for a whole lot less. And living in Dubai, it's actually quite hot. So if you were to live in Dubai the whole year, you're probably not going to feel so good during the hotter months. You know, we're talking May, June, July, August, September. 5 months of the year, the weather is pretty much unbearable. You know, we're talking very high temperatures. You know, in high summer, you know, you can expect at least 40 degrees during day. But oftentimes the temperature reaches as much as 45 and sometimes even more than 45 degrees during day. So it is extremely, extremely hot in Dubai. To make matters even worse, the United Arab Emirates is a Muslim country, meaning you have to obey certain laws, certain rules that may not be common in your home country. If you're from the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, even if you're from Southeast Asia, right, coming to Dubai is actually a big cultural change. Living in a Muslim country is certainly not for everybody because, again, you have to adjust to the local laws. There is no religious tolerance in Dubai. And this applies to premarital sex. This applies to certain rules that I don't even want to talk about in this video because it is a touchy subject. But just so you know, living in Dubai is all about adjusting to the environment that you're in, because the environment is not going to adjust to you. You gotta adjust to the new environment. And as the final nail in the coffin, it is impossible to become a citizen of the United Arab Emirates. Another hyped up country that you should not move to is Thailand, a country located in Southeast Asia. And the reason why we included Thailand into this video is because Thailand, just as Dubai, is kind of overrated at this point in time. Thailand really gained a lot of traction because of its ultra low cost of living and the beautiful beaches, the warm weather. Thailand may be a good place for a single person, but Thailand isn't that great of a place for a family because of the lack of education available. Yes, there are international schools in Thailand, but still the public education system is pretty bad. So you probably wouldn't want to send your kids to a public school in Thailand. And sending your kids to an international school is always going to be expensive. This is not North America, you know, this is not Western Europe where the public educational system is pretty good. In Thailand, it's actually pretty bad, just as it is throughout Southeast Asia. Of course, the schooling system is just one problem. A big problem living in Thailand is, of course, that you cannot become a citizen because Thailand doesn't really allow dual citizenship. So even if you found a path to citizenship, theoretically speaking, it is possible. Would you really want to surrender all your other citizenships in order to become a citizen of Thailand? There are people who claim that Thailand doesn't really enforce this rule. Well, perhaps they don't enforce it right now, but who knows what happens in the coming years. As Thailand advances, Thailand may as well enforce this law in the very near future, in the not so distant future, right? Another con of living in Thailand is, of course, that you cannot own land. And that's a big problem because foreigners that move to Thailand often get married to a Thai citizen. So they end up purchasing the house under their spouse's name, which is a definite option. But still, you don't really own the place yourself. You know, your wife, your husband owns the home. You don't really own it. You cannot own the land. So that is impossible. A foreigner is not allowed to own land in Thailand. There is one theoretical option that you can follow if you want to, that you can go after, and that option is that you can simply open up a company, and through that company you can own land in Thailand. This is not a preferred option because there are some contingencies tied to this option, things that people don't really want to do. It's a lengthy process, it's complicated. So if you want to own land in Thailand, then starting a company and doing it for the company might be your only option. But again, it is not ideal and not for everybody. The main issue in the Far East, okay, and also the Middle East is, of course, freedom of speech. Meaning, if you decide to protest, if you decide to interfere in politics in any way, shape, or form, you may get penalized. And when we're talking about penalties, we're talking about very severe penalties. So we've seen people from the Western Hemisphere move to the Eastern Hemisphere who thought that they can bring their habits and their ways of being and living to the Far East, just to figure out that that's actually not an option. Because when you live in Thailand, you need to comply with the local laws and restrictions. Since Thailand is a constitutional monarchy, you definitely are not allowed to criticize the monarch, the King of Thailand. You are not allowed to do that. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Any form of criticism against the public system, the government, companies is strictly prohibited in Thailand. It is not advisable for you to do that. And that's definitely, again, a very big con of living in Thailand. Another big con is obviously that Thailand has become very popular. Thailand has become very popular among expats, retirees, digital nomads, not so much among families, because Thailand is not a great place to raise a family in. And I'm talking about Western families. You know, we're talking about people that have already a family who want to move to a new country to, you know, build a life there. Thailand is not that great of a place for such people. Now, if you're a Western man, you're married to a Thai woman, that's a different story. But for a Western family to move to Thailand to build a life there is beyond challenging because of all the reasons that we mentioned. You don't get equal rights. You know, there's no reciprocity in civil and property rights. It doesn't exist. And that's a big problem, because if you want to build a life in a different place, you want to obtain equal rights, meaning you want to become a citizen. Of course, first of all, you want to become a resident, an unconditional resident, right? Which is beyond challenging in Thailand. You know, there are certain long-term visas, but again, also, if you find a way to citizenship, it's still very difficult, because you would have to surrender your current citizenships in order to become a citizen of Thailand. The last country you should not move to is Portugal. Now you might think, why do you mention Portugal? Portugal is a great place. It ranks very high on most indexes in terms of quality of life, you know, taxes. Portugal is a fantastic place, but quite a few things changed in recent years. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the real estate situation has changed. If you are not lucky enough to have a European Union passport, you can really only move to Portugal and live there permanently if you obtain some kind of residence program. And if that residence program happens to be the NHR regime, you know, that gives you special tax privileges, then the problem is that you cannot buy real estate in the most populous areas of Portugal anymore. Meaning you would have to buy your properties outside of the major cities. You cannot buy properties on the coast, not in the southern part, the Algarve region. That is no longer allowed. So that's a problem for a non-EU or non-EEA citizen. And that's a problem, right? If you want to buy property on the countryside, the question is, does that really fit your lifestyle? Does that fit your life goals? Many questions that remain unanswered. So that's a definite disadvantage. Plus, there has been more resentment towards foreigners in Portugal, for the simple reason that, you know, thousands of Californians moved out of California and moved into Portugal, and they purchased real estate in the downtown areas of Lisbon and Porto. And that upset a lot of locals, because it increased real estate prices in the downtown areas of the major cities in Portugal and forced the locals to the outskirts of the city where they now live. A definite bad point, because the locals have been pushed out to the outskirts of the city, something that is of course not welcome. And so there is a little bit of resentment now towards foreigners, because they hiked up the prices, right? They drove up the prices, and it forced the locals to live in places they didn't want to live. Because if you live at the outskirts of the city, you need a commute, and that takes more time, it takes money. So things have changed in Portugal. Another disadvantage, if I can point it out, is of course that once you have consumed your initial period of time, you know, when you're actually allowed to, you know, consume income from overbrought tax-free, once that initial period has elapsed, you would actually need to pay your income taxes in Portugal, including on your worldwide income. So, you know, when you move to Portugal, no matter whether you are going in with the NHR scheme or in any other program, income derived from within Portugal is always taxed. You do get some special deals here at the very beginning, you know, for the initial period, but then you would, of course, need to pay more. Are there any other countries that people should not move to? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and investment advice several times a week right now. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.